partnering with innovative business and community leaders from across the region to provide valuable tools and resources that help you attract, retain, and develop your workforce. Today's topic is hiring employees with addictions. Finding quality workers has been a challenge for businesses for some time. One way to fill those essential positions is to open the doors to potential workers that might have been overlooked in the past. Individuals re-entering the workforce, including those in the process of recovery from substance abuse, can expand the pool of available job applicants. Still, this population comes with its own unique challenges, but some businesses have been successful in giving career opportunities to these workers. Today, you'll learn from a panel who has experience with hiring re-entering citizens and learn how to be successful by offering a second chance yourself. We have, this is our third in a 5-part series this week. You can see on the left-hand side of your screen, we had ready yesterday afternoon. We were with the Impact Coalition's Employer Resource Network this morning, and we have 2 other Zoom sessions tomorrow. There's still time to register for those 2 events if you have not done so. Also keep an eye out for a variety of other resources that we will be sharing in this week's e-newsletters, including a new job board that's available on the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce website, instructions on becoming a featured employer on the Toledo Region website, and more. We're very excited for this afternoon's session, and I just want to take a minute to thank our sponsors. There we go. Our gold sponsor for this week is Buckeye Broadband. Our silver sponsor is Associated General Contractors of Northwest Ohio, and our bronze sponsor is the Lucas County Department of Planning and Development. Without these sponsors, we wouldn't be able to provide you with all of this great content for this week. Just a little housekeeping before we get started from a Zoom perspective. If you have video capability, we'd love to see your smiling face, but we ask that you please mute yourself during the presentation to make it easier to hear our panelists today. If you have any problems with the Zoom interface during the session, please direct chat message myself or Julie Sanderson, and we will help you through those issues. And if you have questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box in the Zoom control panel. You can see on the screen here at the bottom of your page is the chat box. That will let us have a flow of conversation. There's a chance that your question might be answered, but we will open it up at the end for a specific Q&A session. A couple other things to make it easy for you to enjoy today's session is if you make sure that you are on full screen mode and also on speaker mode, it will ensure that you're actually seeing the person who is doing the speaking. If you're in gallery view, think Brady Bunch, you'll see all of us. You might not know exactly who's talking at the moment. So we've had success with people using that speaker view. And last, we don't have a presentation today, so this doesn't really make a big difference, but if you want to move your screen back and forth so that you can see the presenter a little bit more, you can feel free to do so. Now, I would like to introduce our moderator for today, Michael Vey, the Deputy Director for Lucas County Department of Planning and Development. Michael joined Lucas County in 2004 and is currently the Deputy Director. Previously, he directed Business and Workforce Services for the Combined Workforce and Economic Development Department. He and his team help oversee the operations of Ohio Means Jobs Lucas County and have assisted with hiring efforts for many companies throughout the region, including Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, Detroit Manufacturing Systems, Mercy Health, ProMedica, Johnson Controls, First Solar, and more. Mr. Vey is a certified workforce development professional with an endorsement in business services through the National Association of Workforce Development Professionals. He holds a master's degree in public administration from Bowling Green State University and a bachelor's degree in journalism from Michigan State University. Please welcome Michael Vey. And Mike, you're on mute.
Yep, I had to make sure I unmuted myself really quickly. Good afternoon. Thank you to everyone for joining us. As Jeff said, I'm Mike Vey, and I'm with the Lucas County Department of Planning and Development. And we oversee the operations of Ohio Means Jobs Lucas County. For those of you who are not familiar with Ohio Means Jobs Lucas County, we provide assistance to individuals struggling to find employment and help them develop job-related skills. We also work with businesses to help them fill some of those critical positions within their organization. As Jeff mentioned, our topic today is hiring employees with addictions, but more specifically, we're talking about those who are in recovery from addiction. Prior to the pandemic, it was pretty common knowledge that businesses were struggling to find quality workers. And as we slowly come out of the economic impact from the coronavirus, that challenge is likely to reemerge as a major concern going forward. One way to address that worker shortage is to open the doors of your company to those individuals you may not have considered in the past. Our panelists today have agreed to discuss their views on hiring workers in recovery, as well as those returning citizens who are struggling to make a fresh start. I'll do a brief introduction and then ask each to provide some insight on how their own organizations approach working with this population and some of the benefits as well as some of the challenges that they have faced and uncovered along the way. Naturally, please ask any questions along the way, and we'll try to do what we can to address those questions. So let me first introduce Lee Dar. Lee is the senior political lead for the Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio Regional Council of Carpenters, more easily known as the Carpenters Union, and has been a member of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters for more than 22 years. He served as a business representative for more than 7 years and currently serves in the position of senior political director for the state of Ohio. Lee is the current chairman of the Lucas County Workforce Development Board, and he's been a member of the board for more than 4 years. He's spoken to many different groups about reentry and claims to be very pleased to participate today. Lee was born and raised in the Toledo area and presently resides out in Sylvania with his wife and daughter. The next person I'd like to introduce is Charlotte DeMarkowski. Charlotte's the president and CEO of Foundation Steel, which is a union reinforcing placer and a structural steel erector. Foundation Steel was recently named among the Inc. 5000 fastest growing privately held companies and was the 17th largest metal building erector in the nation, according to a recent publication of Metal Construction News. Charlotte is the co-chair of the Lucas County Workforce Development Board and is on the apprentice and annuity boards for the Ironworkers Local 55 here in Toledo. And her company employs between 175 and 250 workers, depending on the current construction market. Charlotte's motto is make a difference, and she tries to live that down every day. Although she says she holds her employees to a very high standard, she also considers them as her customers. In fact, she was quoted as saying, "My employees are very important to me. They are family and we take care of them. That means we hold them to a high standard, but also come alongside them when they are struggling." So. And then finally, we have Scott Hayes, who is also a member of the Lucas County Workforce Development Board. You can see where I reached out to find our speakers today. And he serves on the refinery leadership team at Toledo Refining Company, which is owned by PBF Energy, which is one of the largest independent petroleum refiners and suppliers of unbranded transportation fuels in the United States. Scott manages health, safety, environmental, homeland security, and government affairs for the facility, which processes approximately 170,000 barrels a day of crude oil, employs about 1,000 employees and contractors, and contributes about $2.5 billion in direct and indirect economic output annually to the region. Prior to joining PBF Energy, Scott served as the vice president for AA Booz & Sons, a full-service general contractor serving the Midwest market. Scott has also worked for the State of Ohio Division of Safety and Hygiene and Industrial Commission, as well as a defense contractor, Bush Wellman, currently known as Materion. Scott holds a Master of Science in Environmental Toxicology from the Medical College of Ohio and a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Health from Bowling Green State University. There's two of us now. Scott is the father of two young men, a devoted husband, an accomplished musician, and serves on numerous philanthropic boards and enjoys advising and working on local political campaigns. So to get the conversation started, I want to start with Lee. Let me ask you very quickly, can you just explain to us a little bit about how the Carpenters Union's position is on hiring workers in recovery and share some of your experiences in working with this population?
Yes, thank you, Mike, for the introduction. Our Carpenters Union, we often say you need two things to get employed with the union. One is, can you pass a drug test? And two, reliable transportation. It doesn't matter what your past was coming into the union. As long as you are clean and on that road going forward, it doesn't really matter. And don't go to work under the influence of any sort. outside of that, I mean, we've had, members, I should say, on the job site or not on the job site, had their difficulties with drug addiction. We point them in the right direction to seek help. And we're an organization of second, third, fourth, fifth chances. Life happens to everybody, and even those with addiction. And we try to, like, as I said, point them in the right direction to get them that required help to get them back out on the job site and provide for themselves and their families.
Thanks, Lee. And Charlotte, I want to kind of turn to you next since you're up next.
Thank you, Michael. So as Michael pointed out in the introduction, thank you, Mike, that was great. A lot of what we try to do in our business is to make a difference, not only on the job sites, not only for our contractors, but for our employees. And we're all about coming alongside our employees. We all need second, third, fourth chances, like Lee said. So as long as somebody's honest with us about what they're going through, we're there to help them. We have helped point people, like Lee said, in the right direction of where to go, but it doesn't really stop there with us. We try to check in with them quite often. Nobody would want to admit it, but I've had ironworkers come in my office crying, and we've gone over things and things going on in their lives. And in fact, in our orientation, we actually address addiction and any difficulty that they would have, that they can feel free without recourse to come to me. I specifically state that they should come to me so that there's no gossip going on. They're obviously welcome to go to anybody else and get help, but that they can come to me and we will provide them with time off, help them find help. If it's counseling they need, if they need to be in treatment, whatever that is, we'll help them. If we can help them financially, we will. But the main thing is that they'll have a job when they come back, and they'll have support to help them stay on that road to recovery. And they won't miss a beat as far as that goes. And we'll do everything we can to take care of them so they won't have any excuse for not getting the help that they need. And that hopefully we'll help so that their families don't suffer during that time, or suffer more than they're already suffering.
Great, thanks, Charlotte. And finally, Scott, can you kind of share your views on the topic and talk about your experiences a little bit?
Sure, thanks, Mike. And hi, Dr. Adams. I see you there on my screen. Long time no talk. Yeah, so I've lived kind of both two different worlds. So here at the refinery, it's very restrictive. We don't have a lot of options because we're governed by Homeland Security rules. And so it has less to do about addiction and more about charges, crimes that people have on their record. And it's hard for us to overcome that. And it wasn't always the case. The other restriction that we have is we require a bunch of standardized testing. We do personality testing, decision logic. It's a very arduous process to make it through the interview process, to be hired directly with our company. And it has to do with the way your mind works during a crisis and how you quickly respond. And that is a function of what we do specifically when you're working with materials that are flammable, explosive. You have to be able to react if something goes wrong. And so usually when we post jobs, these are jobs that don't require a college degree, but pay well over six figures. It's very competitive. So we'll have a hiring class. We've had 10,000 applicants before, and we whittle it down, and we end up with 20 usually in each hiring class, and it varies on frequency depending on how many people retire. But a pathway into the place that had always been the building trades, and that's an industry that I love and worked 15 years in. And that to me is always, and I was glad to hear comments from both Charlotte and from Lee about the philosophy. That was always a place to give people a second chance. What I've found is when I worked in the construction industry in particular, my experience was some of the best workers we ever had at A. Bose were people that needed a second chance. And some of the qualities that I always liked was resiliency. Many times people that have been through the criminal justice system, been through something difficult, they don't get rattled as easily, don't sweat the small stuff. That offer a unique perspective. The things that upset many of us wouldn't upset them, and they offered great context, I think, was my experience. But also a sense of urgency, a willingness to do anything. The other thing I always liked about the people we hired that needed a second chance was they were very eager to please and follow the chain of command. So as a boss, for some reason, and I don't know why this is, but I found it, I'm sure there's some anecdotal evidence somewhere, that they really looked out for the best interest of those that they worked for, and appreciated that second chance. And those are intangibles. And very rarely did we have feel that we made a wrong decision and given someone a chance. It's a little different with the building trades. If someone's not working out here on site, for example, if we're doing a project, we usually have 500 or so on site every day from the building trades. Right now, a little less because of what's going on with the pandemic. But if someone isn't working out for whatever reason, the building trades are very good at, giving you someone the next day that might be a better fit. And then they can, find another home within the many job sites that they work, or have them work directly for the hall, a variety of different options. But with a place like ours, there's contractual things once you hire somebody. Even with our contractors, we have a Homeland Security rule now that wasn't here when I first got here, that requires background checks. And they go back 7 years. And so we had people that work on site, and our contractors, the ones that have been here for a long time, you don't really, to the untrained eye, you wouldn't know that they're not a direct employee. But we've had, contractors that had been here, and because we're governed by Homeland Security because of the materials we have here on site. If they were to get in the wrong hands, that's not good. And so Homeland Security directed us after an audit to institute this system of background checks with contractors, which we hadn't had. And so we had to let go, and it was very, very painful for all of us here, of some workers that had been here many years that we loved and considered some of the best contracted workers that we had. And so we've lobbied to Homeland Security to maybe look at if the objective is to prevent a terrorist threat, then let's let the charges be more about that than someone that might have got a drug charge or had struggled through addiction. And it seems that they've listened. There's at least some dialogue now to maybe back off that a little bit. Anything we can do collectively to lobby for that, I think, would advance the greater good here.
Great, thanks, Scott. That's very informative there. So while I've got you, let me kind of start with a couple of questions, and then we'll take some questions from the audience if people have them. But I'm assuming that there's nothing on your application that says, have you had any problems in the past with drugs or anything like that? How does that usually come up in the conversation? I mean, how do you usually find out about those kind of things?
Well, we do.
I'm sorry.
Was that?
Go ahead, Scott. I wasn't sure if that was just open.
I'm sorry. To be honest with you, I don't know if it's on the application or not. I know we do background checks, and that's where we flag these types of things. I can tell you in past life, when we've had people come in that had charges, that would open the door to discuss it. And I think it's the crime isn't, to me, that it needs to be in context. It's not just the crime that was committed, but the context in which the crime was committed and why it was committed. And so when you look at, there's so many reasons why people end up at that nexus of the criminal justice system or drug abuse. And if you better understand that, I think you're better able to make informed decisions. If someone were before me, I would offer that, you know, it's if it's on the table and you know about it through a job application or through a background check, then I think a good place to start is to ask, you know, I know people make mistakes. I understand that, and just want to understand why you made yours, and then go from there. You know, I think that context is important.
Charlotte, you had some thoughts you wanted to insert there. Thanks, Scott.
Yes, we don't have any questions pertaining to any kind of background as far as criminal history, drug history. What we do is we do a hire drug test upon hiring, or if they're already current, meaning they tested negative for drugs or alcohol through the union, then we consider them good to go to work. And what I have found is this topic rarely comes up when someone would first start working for us. What might happen is they start running into trouble, or they start not showing up to the job site, or something happens that would kind of be a springboard to that topic, or they learn to trust us and they find they need help, so they reach out. It's never about, are you going to be our employee or are you not? Usually it's a, I need help type of discussion, or there's been a problem with the job, and then between myself and the supervision, we discuss what's going on. And our first line of defense, or the first way that we would ever deal with something like that, is to try and get the person help to talk with them. And if they're not willing to get help, then there's not much we can do. But if they want help, we're right there, and we'll do whatever it takes to get them the help they need and make sure they have employment when they're done. So it's more of a casual thing, and I think it's based on trust or, unfortunately, trouble, one of the two.
Thanks, Charlotte. So let me kind of follow up on that. So your employees, eventually they get to trust you and they know they can come and talk to you. But, you know, prior to that, when they're fairly new, you know, you have to build that trust. How do you put them at ease about talking about any kind of problems that might be bothering them or issues that they may be facing?
That's a great question. And it starts out in orientation. When they're first being oriented to our company, we have a pretty extensive orientation that we go through with each new hire. And I have a personal letter that's in every pack, every new hire packet that the employee keeps. It's also read to them during orientation. And we talk a lot about what we're about as a company and that we're here for them. And, you know, to them, maybe starting out, those are just words. The trust develops right there with their foreman. Our foreman have been with us for a while. They're aligned with our mission statement. They're aligned with what we're doing. And really they're an extension of my vision. And same with our supervision. So while they all have different personalities, it's the trust is just built, and it starts at orientation. And Mike, I can't tell you necessarily how long that takes, because everybody's situation is different. People that are hurting sometimes are more skeptical about help if they've been burned before. So it takes some time to learn, and they learn by experience that we're not going to throw them away. And I think if we aren't getting that message across, then we're failing. So we've seen it. We've seen people reach out for help time and time again. I have iron workers that don't even work for me anymore because some of them like to chase the jobs, and that's all right. But they'll still Facebook me or text me about things that are going on in their lives now, and that's because of the relationships that we built at Foundation Steel with them.
Great, thank you. Lee, I've got a question I want to direct to you. So you're pretty much, it sounds like the Carpenters Union is very open to um, any kind of past history within reason, I'm assuming. Um, are there any specific policies or processes that have been put into place to work with individuals who are in recovery? Because they're going to have some unique challenges, and it'll be kind of interesting to see what kind of structure is built around those challenges.
As the union, as I said before, we direct them to treatment as needed per case, case by case. But as a whole, some of that does fall back on the contractor themselves to address some of those needs. No different than Charlotte and Scott said. Some of the hurdles we do have with some of the individuals that come in with a peppered past would be, no different sending a member out to go work at the refinery. Some of our facilities do have restrictions because of Homeland Security. We also send members out to Davis-Besse, and some of the schools do a extensive background check also. But outside of that, your typical commercial job, our members can go work on, no questions, nobody's going to ask you anything in regards. Everybody knows Toledo's a little bit of a small world, and you may have a run-in from somebody, oh, I remember so-and-so, he used to do this, this, and this, but here, now this guy's on the straight and narrow and got his life together, or maybe he did something when he was 19 and now he's 40 years old. Why let that haunt him from way back then? So we try not to go down that road either with any of them. And to, what Charlotte said, we have members reach out to us all the time saying, hey, thanks. You understood what I was going through and helped me out, because we see it on many different levels. They come to us, and sometimes we're that shoulder for them, some of our members to lean on, because they know we've seen it all from members from the whole region, that whatever may be going on in their lives. And we try to portray that, hey, don't take it back to the job site because it could be an issue for yourself and your employment. And we try to minimize those threats or anything like that. But no, I mean, for treatment, we try to point them in the right direction for that.
Can I add to that? I agree with Lee very much. We can't put them in danger. So we can't say, oh, well, we feel sorry for you, so you can work even though you're under the influence of drugs. We don't do that, but we'll get them help. But we got to keep them safe, and we have to keep the other iron workers safe and the other trades safe too. So while we're merciful, we still have to do what's right for the job and for them. Unfortunately, I mean, they could be at great risk if they're under the influence and working.
And we do training for our stewards training and some of our leadership training through the apprenticeship to identify somebody that potentially is under the influence. Be your brother's keeper. Don't let him get hurt. Don't let him hurt himself or you and others around you. If somebody's under the influence. We had just a small case. We had a member on the job come in. It was night shift. He was going through a divorce. It was one thing after another. And as you know, working night shift can be stressful as it is. And guy came in, he was fine. Half hour later, the guy was kind of loopy and eyes half shut, just, couldn't even barely stand up. Come to find out, after the morning safety talk, he went to the Porta-John and did his thing to get high and come out, and that's how it was. And our steward was able to identify and get the right people. And, does it look good for us? No, but that guy was okay. We got it. He was safe, got him out of there and took care of him, in that aspect, paramedics and such. So it happens. And we teach each other to be brothers keepers of each other out there.
Lee, that kind of leads me to a follow-up question that just popped into my head. How do you get other workers to be accepting to someone who's coming in who, the individual's facing different challenges? So how do you make sure that the other workers are treating them fairly and with the proper respect and that sort of thing?
Well, as I said, I say members, but we're brothers and sisters out there. So we try to fraternize it, make it family-like, but also, yeah, you may be going down a good road, nothing really bad has happened to you, but it will. Something will happen and you'll have that bad day. You'll get out of bed because you were up all night, you didn't get any sleep, Your dog did his business in the house. You stepped in that. You had to clean that up before you left, and then you go out to your car and you have a flat tire, and then when you leave the house, you forgot your lunch on the counter, and then you're already running late. Everything bad that can happen to you one day is going to happen to you one day. And that guy's going to walk into the job site and he's going to be pissed off. We relate, hey, take a step in that guy's shoes and see where he was at. Is this an everyday occurrence? Then we got to take care of it. But is it just that one day? Give the guy a benefit of the doubt, help the guy up, pull him up by his bootstraps and help him through the day. Words of encouragement. We stress that at every turn, union meetings, when we're talking to apprentices, any kind of captive audience we can. Hey, help that guy out. Help, once again, be your brother's keeper.
And it starts with the leadership. If they allow that kind of talk or jarring to go on, then it will become a problem. So it starts with how do our foreman, how does our supervision respond to trouble? And if they respond with respect and a helpful attitude, that really does trickle down. So, and sometimes it takes a conversation, just like Lee said, hey, this person's going through something, you may or may not have gone through something, but we're here to help them. I haven't seen it really be much of a problem at all.
Okay, so Scott, I've got a question to bring back to you then. For those companies that might be reluctant to take this step and to look at folks who are, coming in out of recovery or are currently in recovery or, have had troubled past, what would you say to them to try to allay their fears and kind of open their minds to being a little more receptive?
Well, clearly I don't have all the answers because I'm living through restrictions that we have here, but I would say if we consistently don't give people a chance and they're going to resort to behavior that's harmful because they have no trust that their life can get better. That's the reality. And so if we can give them a platform, a chance safely, and we talked about some of the unique things that come up on a workplace that needs to be safe. If we can give them a chance to earn that trust, it can be a game changer for them. And I think for the company, because I think companies that are able to do this will find loyal, and some of those characteristics I talked about, employees that are unique and truly offer something special.
Great, thanks. And Charlotte, I'm going to pose that same question to you because you're very active with these populations. What would you say to other your peers and other businesses that are considering making this step?
I would say that sometimes your best employees, just like Scott was talking about earlier, because they know what they potentially lost. They know now what the price is and what the value is of what they have. Some of those workers are going to become that company's best workers. They're going to be the loyal ones. They're going to be the ones that are going to be leading by example. And I would highly encourage companies to do it. It's very rewarding to help other people. And I guess that's looking at it kind of selfishly, but I don't see a huge drawback from it. If somebody relapses or something happens, as long as they're watching the workforce and they've got safety in place and they have their supervision trained, as Lee was saying, to recognize when somebody's under the influence, there's not a whole lot that can go wrong with giving somebody a second, third. Anytime somebody quits something, take smoking, for example, I don't think too many stay non-smokers the first time they try to quit. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times or 4 times. But if you give up on people that already want to give up on themselves, they're never going to get past it. So you have to allow people to try. You have to allow them to fail. Then you have to allow them to try again. Again, not tolerating the behavior, but being there for them and helping them along and making sure that they know they have a job when they come back, as long as they didn't do something egregious to your company. That's different maybe, but I think if I was talking to an owner that was suspect about doing something, hiring somebody in recovery or that had a criminal past, I would really caution them against that belief and try to reframe their thinking to the fact that these are good people that had a struggle and they just need help or needed help and they're already on the other side of it. Go for it, because they might be your best employees.
Lee, I want to spin that question around and take it back to you. What would you say to workers who have kind of given up? They've got, you know, a troubled past, and they're saying, I'm not going to apply for these jobs. They're never going to hire me because of a drug offense or because I was in jail or I'm in recovery. What would you say to those workers to encourage them to pursue these opportunities and be upfront and honest with the employer in order to get that second opportunity or third?
Well, you kind of said it, be upfront and be honest with them, with the employer. Don't try to hide it. Another thing that we will try is, I haven't been through everything, but somebody else has, and try to point them in that direction internally within the membership. Hey, go try talking to this guy, or reach out to that guy and make that connection for those guys to discuss the issue at hand. Sometimes it works. And also on the, somebody that maybe has a peppered past on trying to get into a facility, we tell them to go to the legal department and try to potentially get their record expunged. That way they can get back on the job site as soon as possible. Some of them facilities, as Scott said, will pay 6 figures when they're working all them hours. And we looked at those, members looked at those facilities to make that money and get by in those dear times that they're struggling for a position to go to work. So make that connection would be the big one with somebody else that maybe gone through it. Because within our system internally, as my role as a business agent, we meet twice daily, in the morning and afternoon, and we field phone calls from members and talk about some of the instances that happen to some of the people, some of our members out in the field during the day. And I can say, okay, well, I remember about a month ago, didn't you say so-and-so had that problem? What was his number? I had that same issue come up with me. And we make those connections for those members. It's worked out a couple times. I can personally say that we've made those connections, and it's helped those guys stay in, because a lot of times they'll get discouraged and try to, seek employment somewhere else outside of the union. And they may and by outside of the union, they may go work in Home Depot or drive a forklift or drive truck, whatever it may be. And if that's what's better for them, that's what it is. But some of them that have a history with us, with the healthcare, the pension, you name it, it's hard to walk away from that. And we don't want to see them do that either.
Lee, I have an idea too.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say this here. Something that you can do as a member of your or a leader there at the Carpenters and the other leaders is, if you know an owner, we're hiring millwrights now, but if you know an owner that is open to this, you could always say, hey, I'll come alongside you. Let me put you in touch with so-and-so, and you don't have to do it alone. That's just the thought that I had. And right as you were talking, I was thinking that would be, if you guys could do that between you and your business agents, that would be great. I could see that being a great help.
We do that to an extent of, we can't do it for everybody, but we have great relationships with our contractors, and we see them more as partnerships instead of adversary, being more adversarial. So with those partnerships, I can call the owner of Foundation Steel. I can call the owner of Moser Construction. I can call my guy I know over at the refinery, Scott Hayes, and say, hey, I got this guy, here's the issue. Can we work this out some way or another? Those are the connections we make with the contractor base that we have. And that covers all of Northwest Ohio, the 19 counties that we cover out of our office.
I can tell you this. I mean, the people that I've worked with an organization that helps people, and usually the people that we're working with are they've been in prison a while, and they're trying to get their driver's license. They have all kinds of roadblocks, but I will tell you this: if you're someone my advice to the question, I think the original question was, what's your advice to the workers out there? Never give up and be willing to be humble. If you can't get that 6-figure job right off the bat, be willing to work anywhere, and all that stuff takes care of itself if you stay in recovery long enough. It does. People recognize it. We talked about, having the power of having a reference. Like Lee said, I'll vouch for you. And Charlie said, will you go with someone somewhere to make that extra connection? If you have, it always meant a lot to me when I was in the business of hiring to have someone that could vouch for somebody. The other thing I don't want to forget to say is, again, I used the word context earlier. For example, our restriction here is anyone that has a felony period is not able to come on site. We have, there's a lot of misdemeanors that scare me more than some of the felonies. And so I wish we had more flexibility. We're not afforded that. But I think for employers that are able to understand the context, that's very important. You could have someone that could have a background that when you understand the context is much less risk to someone that might have a low level misdemeanor, but is coming off an addiction. And, the further they get away from that addiction, the less risk they present. And so you look at also positions. I don't think it's fair to that person or anyone on the street to give a job to someone that is 6 weeks into recovery of an opiate recovery or alcoholism to drive an 18-wheeler. So look at the positions that are of that it makes the most sense. Would be my advice.
Thanks, Scott. Do you have any other final comments? Unless we have some questions from the audience, do you have any other final comments you'd like to make to the audience out there? That was directed toward you, Scott. Sorry.
I think he's good. Mike, I have a question. Do you guys at Ohio Means Jobs, do you have some tools or guidelines for employers who might be looking at reviewing their applications or their job descriptions or their screening process so that they aren't automatically weeding someone out who might be someone in recovery?
Sure. We don't have anything that's like a handout example, mainly because every business is a little different. Every situation is a little different.
Sure.
But we do have some best practices that we're more than happy to share with employers about how to address the question about criminal background or that sort of thing on applications and how to remove those kind of questions so they're not filtering people out right at the beginning. Most companies now, we inform job seekers, most companies now are going to do drug testing and they're going to do background checks. So our advice to job seekers is always be upfront and be honest about the situation and discuss it with them because, as Scott said, there's a big difference between a child support felony and a lot of the misdemeanors that are out there. I mean, some are. It's always been one of those things that has amazed me. So, but we can provide best practices or suggestions and recommendations to businesses who are interested in being able to make some of those changes and move that direction.
Great. Yeah, I think one of the things that we've heard from some of the employers is, well, it's always been this way that we've done a drug test, or we've always asked this question on the application. And if we remove that, what do we open ourselves up to? And are there certain places that we should go if we're looking to hire someone who maybe is a recovering addict or someone who maybe had some trouble with the law? And so we have some resources for them from earlier this week for where you can go and get some assistance for people who have had some legal issues. So it's great if we can supply some resources for the recovery as well.
We're also working with the Bureau of Workers' Compensation on a program that they're trying to launch that provides funding for employers to be able to train their supervisors and management on how to deal with addiction issues and people in recovery so that they can identify the problems and be receptive to the challenges that are being faced as opposed to, you know, not knowing what's going on and going with a gut reaction in situations that could have been easily diffused.
Yeah, it seems like as the market has become more and more selective and competitive, that any time that we can help remove barriers for people who are trying to enter the workforce and help employers find qualified employees who are going to work hard and show up and not leave after lunch. And I think that's the thing that we're hearing over and over again. So this week has kind of been dedicated to that, of how do you remove some of the barriers? How do you test some of the employees on a trial basis, like with our micro internships tomorrow? So I think this was a great conversation. Are there any other questions from anyone who's on the call right now? Feel free to unmute yourself and shout it out if that makes it easier. No, it looks like we're good. I just want to say thank you to Mike and Lee and Charlotte and Scott again for the conversation today. I think it was really valuable. I think it built upon the stuff that we've already talked about, but added another unique element. Certainly, I want to thank our sponsors again, Buckeye Broadband, Associated General Contractors of Northwest Ohio, and the Lucas County Department of Development and Planning and Planning and Development. Sorry there, Mike. That's your department. I always want to switch them back. I don't know why. But I want to say thanks again for that. It looks like maybe we got one more. Oh, this was a comment. Great info. Appreciate the compassion and openness of the panelists as they go about their hiring process. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So we will make sure that everyone gets a recap of today's event and all of the resources that everybody on the line talked about. Look for this presentation to be up hopefully by the end of this week, and we will send a follow-up email with the other details. Again, thanks everyone for participating today, and we look forward to possibly seeing you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to my panelists for volunteering to participate today.
It was great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all. Great job.
No problem. Thank you.